84 acres, it said that they would be connected to Cloverdale City Water and Sewer.
It was
Now-
back in 1986, right?
No, it was before that.
84.
Yeah, I think it was 84. It was the very first resolution that went before, not Cloverdale, but the Sonoma
Or the
County.
or LAFCO.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't LAFCO, it was,
For David, right?
it was,
Trying to remember
this
the
was
three.
Sonoma County Supervisors
might have gone
approved the resolution,
Yeah.
and it had in there that they would connect to the, so that might be why he felt he could illegally
Okay.
connect.
Ray was the second one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not the
But we-
water, it's not the
they-
water, it's the wastewater.
The company purchased the property from Ray Tyler, his family trust, so. If you want to go back one, chart, no, just so you get an idea of where we are, okay, what we're talking about. So the little green box kind of shows the two parcels in relation to the city of Cloverdale. And then the orange one shows Clearwater Ranch Communities parcel, the 84 acres. And then on the other one, the one adjacent to the housing area there, that's owned by Arvin Babu. And if we didn't include that in our annexation discussion, that would become an island of the county surrounded by the city, which LAFCO would not approve. Yeah, so we wanted to include that parcel in our discussions. And one of the key features there is it has a large pond on it. And it basically, it has up to a 10-acre capacity on with water rights. So we also have a very good well. We have a 75,000 gallon storage tank, and our well, I think was it 46 gallons a minute, something like that.
You know,
It's really, yeah, and it's very high producing. We have no issues with water on the property. Since we've owned it, it's been great. The only problem is when the power goes out.
Yeah. Well,
So
so you see some possible sources for grant money for that, right, Jared?
Yeah. So on the next chart is kind of the backstory and then what's currently there, so. And I know these are kind of eye chart. I can always provide them to you larger if you need.
That's fine.
Well,
And we have them uploaded digitally.
yeah, yeah, so, as I said, it was established in 2018. Show what the zoning is for the parcel. The use permit is for a residential school. We've gone back to permit Sonoma, or, the previous. And they've allowed us to put, have senior care homes on the property. They converted school classrooms, I guess, at the top of the hill. That's up by this, what we call the enrichment center, this large multifunctional building. They were originally classrooms and they were converted to 1-bedroom, 600 square foot cabins. All that's been approved, and they all said it was within the use permit, even though it was non-conforming. So again, I can provide all that background. I think I've provided a lot of it to Kevin already, but I can give it to anybody else that would like to peruse it. So currently, all the houses on the parcel are rented. They're all pretty much collated within about, I'd say it's probably less than 20 acres of the parcel. It's all pretty, the developed part is tight, yeah. So we have
Looked like
two,
it on that map, though, it's actually not that nice.
yeah,
None of
well,
the maps you provided,
yeah,
it's nice,
right, you
yeah.
can see it's all together, yeah. So we have two houses that we rent to the developmentally disabled adults. Their rents are within their SSDI payments, so the rent utilities, they get CalFresh and all that, so they're all self-sufficient. The families, after they purchase the membership in the company, then these adults, they're making their own decisions, even though they have care providers. They get to decide what they want to do, what they want to eat. It's a different type of thing than a group home. It really gives them that sense of independence and pride in their home. We have one house that's a licensed senior facility, care home, and we had some issues with the previous operators. We have new operators there. DSS loves them, we love them, so, and they love all the developmentally disabled adults, they call them the children, which cracks me up, but you know, they're very fond of them all. We have 2 houses and 4 of the cabins, they're all rented to low-income residents currently, so I want to work with, the woman at Permit Sonoma to get that allocated, that is low income or affordable housing on the property. And then we have the future plans, so in order for this to work and be sustainable, without the families having to continue to put capital into the property, they need to have 20 to 24 developmentally disabled adults on the property. The current configuration of the residence only supports housing for 16 developmentally disabled adults. We could modify a couple of the homes to, but you know, one of the things is too that the North Bay Regional Center that kind of controls or oversees care and how these adults live don't want to see more than 4 developmentally disabled adults in an independent residence. In a group home, they'll put 10 in, no problem, or more, but you know, in this, they want to control it to 4, and we're fine with that. We think that's kind of a good model, and that's what we want to follow. So currently, our zoning does not support building additional homes on the property, on the current parcel. We need to, in order for this to work, we have to add additional residents to house those other, you know, 4 to 8 DD adults. We want to keep low income, you know, people on the property if we can. And we want to keep the senior care facility on the property because it makes it a more inclusive and integrated community. It's not just a place for developmentally disabled adults. They feel more integrated. And so,
And as their friends age, they can still go and visit them.
right,
That-
yeah,
that-
they're all gonna age in place there, yeah. And that's when we do any sort of renovations to the property, we make sure that they can age in place. So then one of the other things is we went to, I'm the manager of the company and I'm president of the nonprofit Living Unlimited. So Howard and I, at the last members meeting, we requested of the members for management, me, to investigate a conservation easement to look and see how many acres we might conserve that are adjacent to the Porterfield Creek Preserve, because we know we don't want to develop those like 50+ acres that are westerly acres, the Western Hills, and we know the city doesn't want those developed either. So we'd like to preserve that and maybe use it for either agricultural use or recreation use, whatever we could, you know, work it out. But the members, of which there's currently 19 families, they all approved that we could go and investigate that. So Howard and I have started the application to submit to Ag and Open Space and see. You know, we haven't submitted it yet. It's in my queue to go back and finish it. I'm a volunteer, and so yeah, we're all volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all volunteers. So you know, we have other commitments too.
Yeah.
And then you know, I just put on the bottom there about the bamboo parcel, who the owner is, the size. It's designated the same. It has the riparian corridor just like we do, but it has that, you know, pond.
Does, how ambulatory are the residents there?
They're all pretty good. One has
Cerebral palsy.
cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, 2 do. One has, he's pretty ambulatory. He comes to your Friday night
Right, yeah.
things. The residents come down quite often to the Friday night life
And
things.
if they had access to, I think the question is if they had access to get to Porterfield Creek through
Well,
that
they-
property, would that be advantageous for some of the residents?
Yes, well, one of them, he hikes, I mean, since he moved in, he's lost what?
30 or 40 pounds, he's hiking all the time.
He walks all the time, yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, you all might know him too. He's very, I mean, how tall is Michael? He's
Probably
6'3". Yeah.
So does he go to Porterville Creek a lot?
I'm not sure he does, I think he
I
just
think,
walks.
I think
around.
he just walks around Clearwater Ranch, but he does come down to Cloverdale quite often. He's striking when you see him, and he introduced Michael.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
yeah, hello, I'm Michael. Hi, I'm Michael. Yeah,
And his caregiver is just like,
John.
yeah, and I run into them at the river park and a couple of places around.
Yeah.
No, it just clicked on
Yeah.
who it is.
So now you know Michael, yeah. I think he could become the unofficial mayor.
He's just a.
He's a sweetheart. Yeah, he really is. No, he is so sweet. And really all of I have to say the families, when they get together, they kind of, you know, do a vetting of the folks who live there. They know they're all gonna get along. And everybody seems to be very easygoing per se. And I mean, everybody has issues. We all have bad days, but, you know, they're all really sweet. And yeah, we don't have any behavioral issues with
I
any of
know
them.
another one, serious, another one.
You know, Siri to Polly?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably don't know.
I know that, I think, the owner of Most Evil Nest, more, skates around.
Yeah. So then the next chart is the eye chart, but I didn't want to belabor everything. Yeah.
It's okay.
So I have how it's currently set up, you know, which is what are the current number of bedrooms and how it's,
No, and this is really helpful. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if Gus was able to use his iPad or if it was helpful at all. You can't quite, track it, whatever, yeah.
yeah.
But this
So-
was helpful because we can blow it up on our.
Right,
so I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
us.
So that's what I try to, because I have a written plan too, that lays it all out. It kind of shows how we can help the county and the city in meeting your housing requirement goals. For affordable housing, for disabled housing, all that sort of thing, so. And that's in our plan document, and this table's in there, actually, the woman from Permit Sonoma requested that. And then, you know, we don't know where we're really gonna put the additional residences, but we put some candidate places down there. Like where I know C is very close to the riparian corridor, so we might have to, if we were able to connect to the city sewer, not necessarily water, but just the sewer. We could then get rid of our septic leach field and we could put the house there. Because we would like to keep, you know, currently in H2, H3 and H4 are those are the ones designated for the developmentally disabled, and they're 4 bedrooms each. So that's 12 of the bedrooms. House 5 is the other one that's up at the top of the hill. But house 5 is a manufactured home that has been added on to. We would like to scrape it out and put maybe, as we're thinking, to meet the needs of and meet the regulations set upon us by North Bay Regional Center. We would like to put duplexes, like a 4-bedroom by 4-bedroom duplex. And then that we could actually take that house 5 and what we put there could be low cost housing for the caregivers. And they could
That's my
also
next
work at the
question.
senior, they could work at the senior home.
Yeah.
You know, but if we were, and I know I'm asking for more bedrooms than we need for the 20 to 24, but that gives us flexibility. If somebody's not getting along with someone and we need to move them, or someone has some, you know, physical or, some sickness that they need to be kind of put it, aside for a little bit. We want to have that flexibility, but we're not planning, currently the membership is saying they don't want more than 24. So that would be the max that would ever be there besides what's in the senior care home, and then the 4 cabins at the top, which we'd like to keep the seniors there if we can.
So, yeah, so you're proposing some workforce housing in addition to the
Right.
affordable. It's not uncommon in co-housing too, where you have, instead of having, everybody has to have a guest room like they had in their houses. That my friends who were built, actually from here in Cloverdale, they're moving to West Sacramento, they're building a co-housing development, and they have 2 guest bedrooms. So, and it's kind of inclined for when people's kids and people's visitors come, but they also said, after COVID, they learned a big lesson is that sometimes you gotta if you're in a a tiny house with your partner, you might need to move them to a guest house for it.
Right.
So it's just a smart thing to have that program.
And we've, now that we've been there, the residents been on the property since before COVID. They moved in 2019 into house 2. And so the thing is we've learned it's really difficult for the caregivers, because we kind of thought the caregivers might actually rent a room in the house. But when they're there 24
They
hours,
need their own space.
they need
Yeah,
someplace
they
else.
need workforce housing.
Yeah, so that's why we decided that would be the best solution. Where we could keep the caregivers and they wouldn't have to commute as far, and we could provide them very affordable housing. And it helps with the bottom line of the community too, and keeping the net operating income at a precise level that we can keep this in perpetuity.
Maybe they don't even need to have a car, maybe they can share a car.
Right.
Maybe it's like
Yeah.
it can evolve into just.
Electric
being
bike.
Electrified, that's all you need to get around Cloverdale pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they need to annex in to the city in order to get the water and sewer. In order to expand, the issue is it's outside of our urban growth boundary, which was adopted in November 2nd, 2010. For a 20-year period by the ballot, by a ballot initiative. So we've been discussing the way forward is to have another ballot initiative amending the current urban growth boundary. So that's kind of, we've been discussing with Jen from Supervisor Board's office and Cynthia from LAFCO. And so that's kind of why we wanted to bring this forward. There's a couple ways the council could sponsor a ballot initiative, which would make that easier for them. Or they could go, they have to gather signatures of, I forget what it was, they have 1/3 of the registered voters. So that's kind of what we wanted to bring forward, and Katie did a great job describing what's out there and what their plans are, and
Let's ask the question first too, so those are pretty much the two ways to address this. If the council supported and council on the ballot, have you discussed with your board whether or not you have the authority to go out and get 1/3 signatures, because it would be, be X number of dollars per head per signature. And then you would, the cost would be on you. So just how far have you gotten in that conversation?
Well, we have a budget, so we would just have to probably allocate money from one budget item to another. In order to not exceed what we currently have allocated for capital expenditures for 2023.
Yeah, just before we get any deeper into the land use question. So sorry, go ahead, guys.
Kevin, explain the difference if the city goes and puts it on the ballot. Is that cost that we incur, can that be passed on to the applicant?
I think we'd have to come to some arrangement. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of costs associated with doing this process.
And that's assuming the council supports this, so we're still,
Yeah.
but I also, this is part of the process, is like, just to look
Yeah.
into all of the options and the choices that we have.
Well, kind of piggybacking on this, I don't think there is, but this would be an opportune time if we're going to the ballot to change the urban growth boundary. Is there any other hiccups that we might want to correct that maybe we made the first go around, so we can piggyback on this to get something else taken care of?
Well,
And part of the reason for me asking about the ambulatory ness of the patients, of the residents, is, we're always concerned in a fire or in an emergency on evacuation.
we are as
And-
well.
and do you have an evacuation plan? And I'm way,
But the wildland urban interface issue
Right.
is that's gonna be one of the big barriers, I think, possibly for the voters, but obviously for LAFCO.
And one of the issues is currently the only route out is Cherry Creek Road. So if that was blocked, we have a problem. We could possibly, we've talked internally with the membership, seeing if either we could go across the creek into Chablis Court as an egress, and that we would have to build that and, get permission, all the permits and stuff. The other option is if Arbin Babu's parcel was, also annexed in, if we could get some sort of easement in order, just for emergency evacuation through his property to Chablis Court
And
as
I think
well.
my follow-up to that would be too, that really backing out to a 40,000 foot view is, if this annexation were to go forward, and I mean, first of all, it's, you obviously, you need to have an engineer look at your property so that you can, it's like, what's realistic that you can maximize what you want to be able to do. And then my question would be, just given where the property is, where Mr. Babu's property is, where Chablis is it in our interest to develop a fire road? For all of the neighbors, not just you, so that you have both Cherry Creek and you possibly have another ingress egress that might just be emergency only, or might, so I mean, I'm like, I don't wanna.
Well,
Build
up
roads
behind-
and-
yeah, up
you know?
behind, up behind cabin 2, we currently have, there's a fire road that is not in that picture
Okay.
that you can see. It's below the house 5 and the cabins. And there would be an egress from behind cabin 2, that C2 there.
Okay, yeah,
divide.
I can see,
It
that
goes-
little, is that little beige thing below the C4, that little beige strip?
Yeah,
looks like-
yeah,
yeah.
well, it's part of it, but
Right
we
there,
could
yeah,
go
that's
straight
the point,
down
yeah.
into
Already here.
the Clover
Yeah.
Springs area
Okay.
from cabin 2. We could do a fire road there as
Yeah.
well.
It's just that, when we're looking at all of this, I think it's just good to take a higher elevation, look at it and be like,
Right.
well, hold on a second, if we really. Right now, what we know is ingress and egress is Cherry Creek, but is there some advantage to the neighbors at Chablis, possibly Clover Springs,
Mhm.
possibly Mr. Babu's property? Is there an advantage to saying, well, it's actually kind of an opportunity to make those hills safer? I mean, and if I were on the left over, that's what I would want to hear. And I think if I were her permit snow, that's what I want to hear, but I don't know what she wants to hear, so. We're just going to gather the information, so those are kind of the questions that.
And
Right.
LAFCO in our meetings with them, and I don't want to speak for them, but they did make comments regarding the fact that they're not happy with the way they put the urban growth boundary because they did it by elevation.
Right.
So the
Wasn't
boundary
really-
is, it's not straightforward at all. So, we would say if we move the city limit on a certain, we're willing to split our parcel. So, if we were to keep only, you wouldn't have to take all 84 acres into, annex in the city per se, we could split it up. And or if ag and open space gave Cloverdale money to then,
Purchase.
well, not purchase, but to control the, have that easement, like, then they,
Well, and it's an advantage for your LLC too, because then,
right,
you're not paying for upgrade than your property tax. So it'll be calculated differently.
right, that's what
Yeah.
we
Some of our
did,
biggest bills right now.
Yeah.
Property
Yeah.
tax.
insurance and property tax.
Oh, insurance.
Yeah.
Those two together are about 50 to 60% of our total
Yeah.
operating costs.
Well, maybe just a kind of, again, a high level view. Susie, if you can go to slide 1.
And actually, do we have any raised hands by now, our staff wanting to,
Yeah, not yet.
kind of wants to pipe in yet? We haven't said anything too crazy, apparently.
Slide 1 is the one where it's.
No one's hands
it's
raised.
the-
Yeah, the map.
Yeah.
Is. Okay. Just to kind of recap, the two parcels in question are the Clearwater Ranch community and the Babu parcel, both of which are located outside of the urban growth boundary. In order,
Yeah, because North Boundary Deed doesn't go through our property.
It
It
does,
probably does, because it's based on elevation, so it starts at 400 feet.
I don't think
Yeah.
likely.
so it does go
Or is it,
through
was it
part of
parcel
it.
based or was it elevation based? Oh, it's parcel based then,
Yeah, it's,
Do
I
you?
don't think so, Katie, but maybe
Well,
yeah,
We got it, yeah.
Cynthia's on the line, and I think, my understanding is it followed the property boundary.
I remember because on the western hillsides, it followed the property boundary, but it's also been 13 years.
Yeah,
so-
that's my understanding in this case.
Yeah.
So there's kind of there's multiple actions. One, the desire, I think, that Clearwater Ranch has been working very closely with PRMD on all the associated required entitlements. I think it's clear based on the goals set forth by Clearwater Ranch that it's gonna be restrictive under county zoning requirements. So there's an opportunity to look to the city of Cloverdale, which would require annexation. Annexation to obtain city services requires modification of the urban growth boundary. And then we bring in with annexation, how does general plan policy apply? And so that kind of starts to address the comments made by Katie about possible subdivision of the property. Because tied to general plan policy is dedication of open space
Right,
of
it's a-
properties.
That, it's pretty bad odd, it's unfortunate because the urban growth boundary, how it's ultimately drawn is at odds with the policy of putting the hillsides in protection in perpetuity. And so that's where our general plan and the original language doesn't quite drive, yeah.
So the kind of the process is outlined is concurrent annexation upon approval of an urban growth boundary amendment. In this case, the amendment requires voter approval. Kind of a decision point for council would be whether to support the amendment by way of a ballot measure placed by the council. There are some benefits to that, which could include possibly extending the UGB as Kevin alluded. It does expire, and it's coming up in probably about 7 years or so.
7 years,
November 2010.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
20
7
minutes.
years.
It's 7
Yeah,
years.
so
Yeah. I won't throw the county under the bus,
So the opportunity, and again, the annexation of the Clearwater Ranch parcel is contingent upon concurrent annexation of the bamboo parcel, because if it's not, it creates the island. Mr. Bamboo's here if you'd like to express where his interests lie. I think in previous conversations, he's expressed interest and I think there's some development opportunity for him. And so kind of the question then becomes, if the council is amenable to placing a ballot measure, through conditions of approval, do we require the developer or the builder, the project sponsor to incur those costs? So that's kind of a decision point on that. The other point is around subdivision of the property to facilitate possible dedication of a portion of the property, probably the most western piece of that, to permanent open space. And that would also provide the opportunity, no guarantees, that ag and open space could consider it as a possible open, property acquisition for permanent open space.
Yeah, we're also looking at the entire southern portion too, that is adjacent to Porterfield Creek. So it would be kind of like where the blue property meets ours, all the way across the bottom.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then, we want to keep our water tank on our, on the developed parcel, but everything west of the water tank would be.
So kind of defining what that property division looks like. So that would involve, I think the tool for that would likely be a tentative parcel map where you divide the parcel. Then kind of related to that question would be, is council desire to amend the urban growth boundary to address kind of the division of the two parcels, or does it include all of them? I think it makes sense to not include the open space parcel in the urban growth boundary amendment, just for the perspective that it is really intended to be preserved as open space.
Can I just insert a
Sure.
point here? I think that from a council member point of view, I just want to back up 1 second. What I would want to see, and I don't know if the vice mayor feels the same way, but as far as beginning to talk about this with the entire council, I think what I want to see is how much would it cost for us to put it on the ballot versus how much would it cost for the developers, and let's call you developers for now, to put it on the ballot and just, and so that we can just compare. Because, you know, we know where our budget is coming in the next couple of years, and we know that that money is tight, and it may be, if I'm looking at this issue, I may want to say, you know, I would support the project, but we don't have it within the budget. And I just want to know the numbers. I just want to know the numbers up front, and so that we can kind of make that call, because just to be perfectly
Well, we
honest,
don't
that's
even
what
know either, so,
Right,
yeah.
right, so we're all kind of in the same boat, so, you know, so that just to back up, that's kind of where I want to start with that, and then I actually love that our city manager is former community development director. Because then I think the next step after that, if all the parties are, you know, everything is, you know, we've got some basic agreement on how we're gonna start, then we go to that next step of, you know, probably a tentative parcel map, and you'd want to have your, you know, you'd want to have your engineer or designer just take a look and just say, what's the highest best use? How do we maybe give up some of the property that we don't want to have to incur the property taxes or maintenance for, you know, so that you can make those decisions
Right.
too.
Right,
Does that
right.
make
And-
sense?
Yeah, and you know, I agree with you. I think overall, I'm in favor. I think there's some benefits to the city by making this happen. I am concerned about the cost that the city has to bear. I'm concerned about the amount of time that the city would have to spend on this without being reimbursed.
Mhm.
So cost is what's important to me right now. But I think it's a good project. I'd like to see it come to fruition. I'd like to see it being captured in an open space, the acreage that you wanna give for that. And yeah,
I think there's a
I
lot
could
of
support it, but it's cost.
There's a lot of room for mutual benefit
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It would help us actually kind of, you know, reach some of our goals. I
Right.
think you do wonderful work, and obviously the counties, it's in their interest to see
Right.
more space for developmentally disabled adults. This is an absolute need in our community.
Oh,
so-
it's not just the community, it's, you know, and it's throughout the country and really the world, but California does such a much better job than other states. I can't tell you how many people from outside the state of California call me, and they want to know how they can get the same benefits that the developmentally disabled adults get here in California. And that's because of the Lanterman Act that was put in place in the '60s when Reagan closed all the
But
development centers.
you're also an employer. I mean, we have to
Yeah.
look at it that way as well. And the fact that workforce housing would be a component of this is very, very attractive.
Yeah.
Because I hate to see people have to commute from distances.
Well, we want
Yeah.
to have a community manager that would be paid also, that's built into our operating budget. And that's someone that would manage the property. Right now, you're looking at the two property managers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not,
How's the tick season doing? Yeah.
I don't know, we had a deer that was stressed yesterday, not knowing where it was for a while there. And when the wildlife people came, then they couldn't find the deer. And, you know,
It's all part of the job, right?
yeah.
Hey, how far off are you from having like a general idea where a subdivision would occur?
I think I have a pretty good idea. We've provided, we provided, I don't remember.
It was at our,
Maybe it was Cecily, was it, or?
I think we should have had a meeting. I think.
Yeah, I think we showed it in a meeting, but we can, you know, it's our, using the ArcGIS site and calculating acreage and, you know, and, you know, just the real, you know, we would probably give up more if we didn't want to keep our water tank on the developed parcel.
The fire department may want you to, so. I think
They would,
And that's
we have
part of the-
hydrants connected to that
And
system,
that's
so
part of the
that's,
development process of
Yeah.
working with, you know, working with an architect who.
yeah,
can-
our
and
whole fire
engineer.
suppression system is
Yeah.
from that tank, so we need to keep that.
You may be required to keep that, so.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. And, you know, but, yeah, so it's just, you know, we can work on it, but definitely it's, you know, from the urban service area west. And that's on your maps here
Yes.
somewhere.
That's behind the door.
Yeah, and so, definitely that part, but there's, you know, there is some to the eastern part of the current urban service area line, I think, and then. as I said, the bottom part of the parcel to connect it, more of it to Porterfield Creek. Because we don't want to develop down at that southern part. We really want to, we want to have a community, so we want them all to be kind of together.
So what I hear, Madam Chair, is I hear, generally, the support for moving this along. It sounds like what we need is a kind of a strategy work session with council to discuss some of the details. Again, just for reference, there's a number of entitlements, annexation, urban growth boundary amendment, which requires voters.
LAFCO has to weigh in as well.
Yes.
Right,
It'll go before them.
a general, before it goes to LAFCO, a general plan amendment and some type of planning entitlement. We would probably look at this as a type of use, it's kind of unique, is, like a conditional use permit, with some kind of related zoning designation, probably a plan development.
Yeah, we
too.
talked about fine.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
would just be, I mean, that's the thing is that there was nothing so special about it that it's really a co-housing development.
Rezoning.
Yeah, because they're an LLC, so, so they all share ownership.
Right.
So it's not anything where it's like it's a medical facility, am I correct in assuming that? Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it should fall under a residential designation.
Yeah, it is just, Living Unlimited only provides the housing portion because, again, Department of Disability Services, and actually it's the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, split housing and care. And it makes sense. It makes it harder for the families, but it does make sense because you don't want to lose your house because your care is bad.
Right.
Or if you have good care, you don't want to have to lose your house because you're going with the care. So, finding that permanent, safe place for your adult child that is, all these parents, it's, their worst nightmare, what's going to happen to them. So it gives them that peace of mind that they know they'll have that permanent place to live where they'll be safe and receive the care that they require.
Well, the only thing I'd like to try and button up or come to some conclusion on is the reimbursement portion of staff's time. And how we set that account up, and at what point we need to be reimbursed.
Vice Chair, we do have, by way of our master fee schedule, set fees for a number of these entitlements, and so those are pretty standardized.
Into the fees.
I think, unless council directed otherwise, those would be the applicable fees for the project. The unknown, I think, is the cost of putting a ballot measure on.
Yeah.
And
And that's why we need to settle that, I think, initially too, is that it may be more cost effective, or we just may be in a position where we can't. Just because of our budget situation, the next couple of fiscal years, it's gonna be very tight, and it may just be,
How many registered voters do you have?
oh gosh, it's like
4,000.
4,000, it's around 4,000, maybe
Okay.
15% of that. It's really not,
Okay.
it's very doable. And then it actually, you could either, petition it yourself, or you can hire, you can hire people and they professional signature gatherers. So it's like, that might be, it's not as scary, like, what I'm trying to say, it's not as scary as it sounds.
Yeah, well, the thing is too, is that I think some of the members would actually
Yeah.
welcome being able to talk to the voters to get them to sign the petition, but also know that they're in favor of the,
It may be a good opportunity to do outreach, so
Yeah.
that's something that you might want to consider. And there are lots of people who do that for a living in Sonoma
Right.
County, so.
yeah.
Yeah, the other element to all of this is, the appropriate environmental document, and that's something planning staff will look at pretty closely. We want to make sure that, ultimately, if we want to package this up for LAFCO approval, they're going to take a look at it. So we
So do you
collaborate.
need an EIR report or?
Well, my immediate sense is that an EIR wouldn't necessarily be required. EIRs are required whenever there is a potentially significant impact.
Yeah.
That can't be mitigated, really. In this case, we would.
If there were a subdivision, there would be an EIR.
What we would do, Katie, is, and I say we, mean staff, may probably with the assistance of a consultant, prepare a CEQA initial study. And generally, if as part of doing that checklist, if there are significant impacts that can be mitigated with appropriate conditions of approval or mitigation measures, then we can proceed with a mitigated negative declaration. If there is some otherwise significant issue, which I think, as you know, we've been talking with the applicants since we were talking earlier, since 2019. So this has been in the works for some time. It's been more of how do you address the requirements to annex and what strategies do you employ versus there being, significant impacts. Now, with that said, doesn't mean that as part of review, something may pop up. Certainly, fire access is a critical issue. But those are things we can work through and identify as part of the process. Would only become a condition of approval that, a certain easement be provided or something.
And same with on the ranch itself. I believe a portion of our road that goes from, down where the senior care home is and the other, the housing for the developmentally disabled up to the other housing and the, enrichment center at the top of the hill. That road, I think, has to be improved for fire access.
So 2 questions, maybe the possible elimination of the leach field, is that a positive or is that just a neutral?
I would think that,
I would think it would be a positive.
yeah, it would be viewed as a positive, eliminate, the need for land,
Yeah.
land disposal. But sometimes those systems work pretty good, so,
Yeah.
it may, there could be as many impacts trying to extend sewer as there are continuing to use, if it's a viable system. But those are all things, we just need to look at.
And the current septic system on the property was designed to support the 34 bedrooms.
Yeah.
And not all those bedrooms were one person.
Sure.
And with the children, and they had multiples in each one of the rooms, so, but it was for 34, so we're, granted with our plan to add the additional, bedrooms that we're not planning on truly occupying, one might be a staff room in each one of those duplexes, but, and then, I don't think they want 4 caregivers all living in a duplex, so.
No.
But, if it's a family, it would be great to have 4 bedrooms, they could spread out. And so it's, but I know that for septic, they go by number of bedrooms, so it's, on one hand, the 34 bedrooms had more than 34 people. And we're looking at putting in more bedrooms and not having
And fewer people.
and fewer
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But we would have to put a whole new septic system in, so that's another like 200, probably $250,000. We'd have to find the right place, leach, another leach field, like field 3 probably, so it's, we prefer not to, I mean, really, if we could connect. Sewer isn't really the issue, water, I know you kind of gauge your sewer fees on water usage, but, I don't know. We don't really need to have water.
I think that the main concern is gonna be fire and
Yeah.
egress and evacuation. I just think that.
Yeah, and all the
All of us
homes,
have lived through that.
all the homes, have the senior care home and the other 2 homes with the developmentally disabled, they have evacuation plans in place. They have emergency protocols and all that. Provided by the care service agencies, and in order to be a licensed senior care home, they have to have it. But unfortunately, we only have 1 road in and out right now. And it does worry me, and when I bring it up, one of our members says, please don't tell me that because it makes me want to cry because her son lives there. And I said, but we have to fix this. We have to make sure there's another way out. I haven't said put a concrete slide down. I haven't too.
There you go.
Yeah,
Illusion.
in the dark, in the dark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good solution. So David, I think you were kind of heading us toward next steps. What do we?
Yeah, I think the staff will continue to work with the project sponsors on bringing a kind of a workshop discussion before council to get, general direction on some of the key issues around annexation, modification of the urban growth boundary, ultimately the use, in feedback on, things like the cost of placement in the ballot measure. Ultimately, if council's supportive, all of these things would have to be packaged up, go before planning commission for a recommendation, then back to council ultimately for action. But we'd want to, I think, bring this to council first for policy direction, specifically on the urban growth boundary. There's a little bit of a timeline matter with that in terms of, we've got two elections in 2024, one in March and one in November. So, part of it is kind of looking at strategizing around those timelines and which one might be feasible, again, given all the work that needs to be done to be able to get this before the voters and ultimately supported by council and off to that bill.
Okay, so yeah, what's the next step? Do you want to just go ahead and workshop it at the council?
We'll take your direction, Madam Chair, if you'd rather us do more workshop and bring it back here, or if you want to give us.
The only thing I would like to see, do you think it's possible to do an analysis of the potential improved ingress and egress for the surrounding neighborhoods and property owners? Is that possible at the staff level, or? Because I just think that would be important for, it's going to be important consideration for council and obviously I think planning commission as well.
Yeah,
There's that too.
Chipley Court, because it does not, its egress is not out onto Cherry Creek Road, it goes the other way,
Right.
or into Clover Springs, either one. That's what I've looked at as being optimal. I mean, it's just, because I have been looking at it for a couple of
Been
years
staring
now.
at the map for a while.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't that be up to the applicant to bring that to us? I'm also concerned about the expanse of the ballot initiative as well.
Well, and here's why I'm asking if staff can just do a really high level, because I'm not looking at it as a service to provide the applicant. I'm looking at it as from a larger, is this a development that is advantageous to our firefighting and our emergency response? That's what I'm looking at from that perspective. Is it more advantageous to folks on Shipley, the folks who are already on Cherry Creek, the folks who are in Clover Springs, the Babu property, all of those things? I'm looking at it from a bigger perspective. Is it better for that entire area if this project would go forward? Because it would create better access for everyone. That's why I think it's appropriate. But if you don't think it's,
Well, I'm just thinking staff.
Yeah.
That's all.
And that's why I'm asking it the way I am, is that, do you think that is that possible to do with limited staff time?
Well, I think it should be part of the review. I mean, there are these high level questions we want to answer, and that's a more focused, detailed issue. But that doesn't mean we couldn't do some cursory review. And I think it also is pertinent to future subdivision, because ultimately we don't want to landlock the parcel. So there needs to be at least some planning and thinking around how this access, if that parcel is say sold to them, dedicated, where is access provided? So I think that is
It's
part of
It's more of a community question, is providing, like, is it advantageous on this time to consider it? So that's why I don't want to necessarily put it on the applicant. I don't want them to have to do like heavy duty engineering. I don't want us to do heavy duty engineering, but from a
Possible.
figure that it's possible, and does it provide advantages for the other existing communities? That's what I'm asking. But I'm also very hesitant about incurring an additional ballot cost that we would need to
Right.
I'd like to see if any of the attendees have any comments, give us some. Yeah, give us some words of wisdom.
Anybody else with their hands raised?
I'm not showing, so I just wanna, oh, here we go, here.
Go.
Let's, Mr. Byrne here, let's promote a panelist. Mr. Byrne, you were promoted to panelist. He went away. Oh, here he goes. Okay.
There you go.
All right, Mr. Byrne, you can, there you go. Okay,
All right, are we live? Can you guys hear me?
we can hear you.
Great. I just wanted to jump in. I'm working with Mr. Babu as his consultant. Just wanted to say thanks to Katie and Howard. They've been working super hard and we're very sympathetic to that use. And we hope that this thing gets to be seen through. We are interested to learn like what those land use, if the parcels are annexed and we are rezoned to Cloverdale, what that might mean for Mr. Babu and the entitlements and the land use that he can do on his property. So those are things that we're looking forward to. We don't have any grand plans for the Babu lot. It's just single family zoned. Currently, that's all we would be doing before or after. So just trying to understand what those impacts would be if we were to be annexed, or if simply just the urban growth boundary changed, what that means for allowable development on this parcel. So I'll follow up with probably David separately on that at some point in the future.
Thanks, Daniel. City manager just had a large insect on his shoulder, so there might have been a little kerfuffle if you guys saw that.
It's a little twitchy.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's right. I don't know, but it was very large, because I don't think it was a spider, so. Yikes. Yeah, that's very fun. Yeah, there you go. Okay, sorry about that little interruption.
Next few months, bring it to the council or?
No, good. That's all I have.
Well, did we answer his question?
Yeah.
Mr. Byrne, and on behalf of Mr. Babu, thank you for your comments. I think we would propose to bring it in as it's currently shown on the zoning map, which would be the R1. Yeah. But if as a property owner, you have other intents, if you wanted to share that with us early on, that obviously helps with any analysis.
Actually, they're.
Yeah, I think the R1 would be.
Or DV8.
Oh, okay, it's county.
Yeah, I went to the, permit Sonoma website and got the zoning for both parcels.
Gotcha.
That's correct. Currently, it's our DB8, which entitles us to several things and very limited limitations on where those things take place. If we do go annexed in, especially as an R1, there would potentially be significant impacts to placement of a residence relative to elevation because of the western hillside. So we would be interested to learn how that might affect us moving forward. The RR designation, if it came in as a rural residential, which maybe it is better suited to that being such a large parcel, that might be more beneficial for Mr. Babu to feel better about annexing in under an RR.
Got it. That seems to make a lot of sense
Yeah.
that the RR residential designation, because part of the effort would be pre-zoning, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel.
Want to see if there's anybody else.
Anybody else with their hands raised who'd like to comment at this time? Did you want to just kind of summarize what our next actions are again? This will be clear.
So the direction here from the Planning and Sustainability Subcommittee is to bring this forward for a workshop discussion. Probably be new business, could be a presentation on the proposal, much like was given by the project sponsors today, with analysis of the key issues and requirements, along with some proposed strategies to address the physical requirements associated with a general plan amendment, pre-zoning amendment of the urban growth boundary, annexation and environmental review, with some of the key issues being costs of staff time for performing the entitlements and bringing forward a ballot measure. With some of one of the key environmental issues is analysis of transportation and public safety access.
And just to be specific to, that bigger overall view of how will it impact what are the improvements possibly in fire safety if this project were to move forward and the benefits to the adjacent property owners and actually we're one of the adjacent property owners because we own Porterfield Creek. So we're one, we have skin in the game here. And if there isn't anything, it seems to be neutral. If there is, if it's a neutral benefit, if there are some obvious benefits from some additional access to those hillsides, I think that I would think that the planning commissioners and city council members would want to have that information and be part of the decision making process.
Right. So for example, possible increase in open space, adding to Porterfield Creek open space, properties available for better fire
And better fire access, yeah, for the city on property as well as possibly some of the other neighbors,
More affordable housing.
more workforce housing, workforce.
But
That's so the trouble, yeah. But just from this first flash, those are the questions that I'm gonna continue to want to have answers to. Does that sound good? Does anything else?
No, just a possibility of future water use if we can put the city office.
Yeah.
So if you need anything from us, just let me know. I can.
I'll be working with David and Kevin, continue to work with
Yeah.
them. And then we'll see it again when.
See what, see. But keep it short and sweet, like, I try and put everything that people want to see on the trail, so.
It's very helpful.
Yeah.
I think we'll move. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been,
Yeah.
pre-COVID, it's been a while. since I've-
Yeah, I'm here from time to time.
You're around sometimes, I know.
Nice, very nice.
And next time, we take a 5-minute break before we have our next.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, everybody, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
thanks, Deanna.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I'm gonna be able to make it.
Oh, darn it. Okay, well then,
I
let's,
do have just a quick email from her.
Okay.
I asked her when the,
are we on, David?
Yes,
We're
fine.
on. Okay, so let's just go ahead, since we can't get on, let's just go ahead and do item 2. Under new business.
Okay.
Yeah.
well,
Did we explain in the email why we are not included in that range?
well, I asked her, I didn't ask her why, but I said, was there any plans to extend the range? And she said, we anticipate, so Gus, this is it's called a PACE ride, Age Well PACE program, where they provide seniors, the goal of the plan is to allow seniors to age in place. And one of the services provided through that is rides, which Councilmember Bagby's been working to try to help seniors get rides. So she came across this PACE program, which is,
You came across this page.
no, you,
No.
well,
Okay.
either way. So they're currently and so they do offer rides for seniors, so it could potentially fulfill this need that we're trying to work on here. But their current range basically ends at Windsor. So,
Yeah, and I actually kind of dove into the website and I could not find a straight answer. It's like, why, is it census rate? I was hoping to get an answer from Anna. It's like, why aren't we included? Why is it cut off at Windsor? And yeah. Did you?
well, I asked her that question. She said, we anticipate we might be able to open a satellite office, but there's, you have to go through 3 years of federal and state audits first. So I'm not sure how long the program's been up and running, how we are.
It's 5310 funds that they are using, or is it just, it's like, that's the other thing I'm completely unclear on.
Yeah, and then she said, we understand, I'm not sure if they are, we understand there's a big need. So if we pass the audit with flying colors, we'll be moving it. She was scheduled to be a participant in this meeting, but she had.
Yeah,
couldn't make it.
can we just table this for another? Is there anyone in the public who wants to make a comment on this? Because I think that just until we get some answers from. Anna.
See no hands raised.
Okay.
Well, I could kind of see why it ends in Windsor. I mean, who wants to come up here and drive people around down to Alexander Valley Medical?
Well,
You know,
that's not
yeah,
what that's not what the senior center is trying to do.
No, they're trying to get it to go down to Santa Rosa, you know.
No, they're trying to just get rides. I mean, it could be grocery store, it could be Alexander Bell Healthcare, it could be to Kaiser, which is a lot of their members use Kaiser, a lot of their members go to Sutter. So a lot of them want to have a social life.
Well, you know,
Concert.
not to turn this personal, but a couple of weeks ago, I had my wife in the emergency room down at Hillsburg, and they kept her for some blood transfusions. And the next morning, they called me at 6 o'clock to come and get her. They were discharging her. Well, I
Yeah.
don't drive anymore, and so I told the nurse that I'd have to call around. This was a Saturday morning and try and get somebody to come down and pick her up.
Mhm.
And she said, "Don't worry about it. We'll put her in an Uber."
That's what they do.
Next thing I know, and the hospital paid for it.
Because that's called continuing care or discharge planning. That's what they're actually supposed to
Yeah.
do.
So-
But they didn't know that you needed that additional
They
service.
didn't know it, you know, but I just thought that was amazing that they did
Yeah.
that. And then the VA, Jamie Foxx, one of the representatives out of Santa Rosa, is now trying to reestablish veterans' rides. So that veterans could be taken around to their doctor's appointments and what have you, not just the grocery store,
Yeah.
so.
Well, what the senior center is trying to do is actually access the federal funding that we are entitled to in our district that we're not getting. So, and they're trying to establish probably a multi-tier ride program providing multiple levels of service. So healthcare, groceries, social, just rides, you
Right.
know. So let's find out where we're at with it on at a future meeting and go from there.
She was absolutely willing to participate, but she got pulled away for something at work.
Oh, that's,
So she let me know last week, but she'll come to the next one.
but we've got this, the www.sonomasienior.access.org find rides, and that is a resource. But the problem is that, the senior center is really plugged into this issue and they're hearing from their members, which is, our residents, that it's just not cutting it. So when I went to the calpace.org, none of it talks about how can you be eligible, or, you could put your zip code in to find services, but then it doesn't tell you why you don't have services. So that's a behind the scenes question. So yeah, let's just go ahead and table it till a future meeting. And then do we want to just go ahead and move on to design standards and agree?
Yeah, I can just, the direction of the city council at the last meeting when we considered those zoning ordinance amendments was to take a closer look at the design standards. State mandate is really to remove all objective components to that, things like, fit in with the neighborhood. Although we can still continue on with setbacks, if we want a window every 10 feet, and we can get very detailed as long as we're prescriptive in telling people what we want. So what we thought here was, and we did take a big step forward at that last planning city council meeting, when we eliminated some of those finding languages, the language in the findings that were ambiguous and objective or not objective. So we're gonna plan to bring forward at the next meeting some of our proposed changes to try to sit through our current design standards and remove any of the objective language. And then we can, at that time, we can take any comments on if you want to bolster any other areas that in ways that we can, or just go ahead and.
You want to remove what's subjective.
Yeah,
Subjective,
move is
sorry.
subjective.
Sorry.
For as much local control as we can maintain, I think is good for us, so.
Let's not violate, and while doing that, let's not violate state law.
Yeah, I mean, the impression from this discussion at the council, we don't currently, review for design, like a single family home necessarily, like someone building a house on a single family lot in a neighborhood, and then we do our setbacks and things like that, but we don't have colors,
Yeah.
and we don't have.
We're
I
not
don't know,
an
we want to
HOA.
go there, but,
Well, I think that the impetus behind the recent legislation is to remove arbitrary
Yes,
criticism,
all tactics.
yeah, so. I think you've got pretty clear direction, so.
yeah, I think in what we did last time, we almost did all of it, but we're still gonna go through and make sure there's no other ones, bring that forward.
Yeah, in review of the zoning ordinance, the design standards, I think, are generally reflective of principles that the council would support. and in some cases, it just may be providing more definitive language to ensure that they are objective rather than subjective. So it's not screen air conditioner, so it looks good. It's gonna be providing more detail that around.
Fence around air conditioner.
Right, so it's very definitive, so it's, you either meet the condition or you don't.
Right. Right.
And
That's what I would want, and I think that I think just, it's been a while since we looked at projects like this, but I think the language is pretty clear. On our standards, so,
A lot of it's fine.
yeah, a lot of it's fine,
A lot
all
of
I do
it
is
is-
just clean up.
Yeah, it is. I mean, most of it is really pass the test. It's just.
Well, I think you've got pretty clear direction for us. Is there any input from the public, Susie? Anyone with their hands raised on this subject? No? Okay, but that will move on to item 4, benches at state start. I'm going to say state parks, at start of park trails.
This was requested as a future agenda item at the last meeting. I think there was interest in placement of a bench at the trailhead at Porterfield Creek. Our park superintendent, he wanted to be here today. He is actually working on some park improvements. He's actually getting a water fountain, a new water fountain installed at City Park.
Well, gosh darn it, would you please tell Hector that on my way here, a woman was filling up her water bottle at the plaza. She took a sip and went, oh, and she's like, that's good water. I just giggled to myself and I was like, oh, that's Hector's filter system, so enjoy. So people are enjoying those.
Well, David, I thought we had in Public Works, the installation and we ordered the new park benches.
Yeah. And I think that plays into those.
Yeah, we're gonna put one of the old ones down there or what?
Yeah, so we do have the benches for the plaza on order. The thought process, because those, the ones that are gonna be replaced, have the wood members and given the fire concerns at Porterfield, because it's one of the areas where it's a high fire hazard designation.
Yeah.
We did get a quote to purchase a new all steel bench, which would, we
Get kind of hot up there though.
Yeah.
well, we have 2 of them. Up there already. I think what might be feasible is just to pick a more neutral color. So or place it in a shady area.
Yeah.
For entrance.
Well, they're about 3,000 and Hector has Hector says, give me the go ahead, I'll order it, so.
So you said shade at the park
It
entrance.
is really hot there.
Is there any shade?
There is no shade.
Well, right at the trailhead, there's kind of 2 entrances. One is the primary public entrance.
Right.
At the Skyview, and then there's another pedestrian entrance by way of the Clover Springs Trail.
Which doesn't have the great use, so the request, kind of go back, the request was made by a woman who uses a walker to get to the trailhead. And she
Okay.
said, well, I can't use the trailhead, I like to be there and enjoy the view. So, I know that and I asked her, I was like, oh, have you tried, going down to the benches on there's a bench on the trail.
Mhm.
There, the Clover Springs has a bench that's right there, and she goes, oh, but it doesn't have the view, and I was, okay, so, but I mean, I'm appreciating the functional input from somebody who, who's using a walker and wants to be able to go and enjoy the view, so that's kind of the purpose of it, is being kind of that entrance, but yeah, being an all metal bench is problematic because of the lack of shade. I mean, I was hoping that I was hoping we'd be able to actually use one of the wood member benches, just because they're better in the heat. But if that's not, if that's because of the fire hazard, that's possible. Maybe it doesn't need to be, or it needs to be one of those really meshy, those mesh benches that don't have the solid bars, but they're like, and I'm talking about kind of like epoxy covered.
Yeah.
Well, they could,
Yeah.
I mean, we certainly could, and maybe
They're metal, but
it's
they're
not placed,
but like more like a web.
placed closer to where the trail from the Clover Springs and the entrance kind of coincide, maybe there's
Yeah.
a spot right in there. Where, you know, it's probably a lower fire hazard than putting it more into the preserve.
Yeah,
Where
because
we
you-
could,
yeah,
we
they
could
can't-
use.
They can't access it on the rocks or the dirt. And it's like, she's not the only person I've seen go up there with a walker or a walker and their little dog, and they just go up to the top because that's as far as the pavement goes. But they like to, but it's like, that's that nice little turnaround, and then everybody stops and talks, and
Yeah.
people are coming and going from the park, and it's kind of a little social place. It just would be nice to have a bench there anyway, because people do, they stop and chat.
Well, we're open to your direction if you'd like us to purchase a new bench, if the preference is to reuse one of the existing, it certainly reduces the cost to the city, and we just have to wait till we get the new benches to be able to repurpose.
Yeah.
Those replacement costs.
I'd like to see us try and use one of the old ones.
To repurpose them.
Yeah, somehow.
And they're cooler. I mean, but if if it really is a fire problem that, override the people who don't do it professionally.
Well, the only thing about it, I guess, if it is a fire situation, it's gonna burn in place.
Yeah,
You know, it's not like you're gonna be able to hold a match under it and set it on fire. I mean, the wood is so thick and it's so hard. I can't imagine that happening. So it's not gonna combust on its own.
Right, it looks like there may be a space where the trail comes out right in here, where, if you put it back up in here,
yeah.
it's gonna require.
And also you got fire truck and water tank access, so that's no, yeah, I was figuring that was no good. You don't want to put an annual bubble bench in the way of a fire truck. So, but that little corner there is a nice little, that could be a nice little gathering spot. I mean, as long as it's cool with, Clover Springs. And it's our property, but
It's our property.
So,
We might be able to put two up there.
might be nice if we could put a tree on that. I mean, do we have some water or access? It'd be nice if we could make it a nice little spot.
Tree.
The tree.
Yeah,
I wanna
try to get water that.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if we have access to. We might not want to get it started we want to start it next fall. Does that sound reasonable? Oh, Susie,
Yep.
working on that.
Suzie, you're sharing your screen.
Your spreadsheet showing. Just don't you think there was? Okay, does that sound good? You want to take that?
Yeah.
Hector, and just see what we can work out?
Yeah, so here's kind of an image.
Yeah.
Um,
I was there yesterday.
There's kind of a carve out there.
Yeah,
And I'm seeing a little bit of shade, so I don't know, maybe
Yes.
depending on the time of day.
that's late afternoon. Yeah,
If the sun's moving around this way, this
Yeah.
may be in the shade.
because it's coming like this. It's coming like, it's kind of coming like that. So that's gonna be pretty sunny in the morning hours, and then when the sun starts to pass in the afternoon, you're gonna get that. Yeah. So
Is
it's really horribly hot.
I mean, up here, there's
Yeah.
not a lot of shade, I don't think, at
Yeah,
any
it's
time of
awful
the day.
there. It's hotter than heck right there.
It just looks like
Yeah,
you might be able to fit 2 benches in,
you
right?
might be able to. Yeah, that'd be nice.
You didn't have to build a chain structure too.
Oh, well, now, I'm making my gear, so.
The Clover Springs to do it.
It'd be really nice, because it's a really natural gathering spot for folks. People already stop in to have their jogs and meet there anyway. In that little corner, so.
We'll get them, we'll fix
A
them.
little pocket park, maybe, yeah, I'm just gonna get really ambitious. How about some of our art projects? There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that. Okay. All right, let's move on to some chill benches. Regulation size pool feasibility plan. Item 5.
This was brought forward at your request, Madam Chair, to discuss a regulation size in I participated in these are usually funded or usually undertaken by aquatic consultants. And there's a lot of analysis that goes into usually the sizing of the pool, the amenities that also relate to the programming So it's just, we did not, seek proposals. We really just wanted to put this on, just get your direction on, what do you view as next steps?
Wanted to put a thumbnail in it, and I mean, I'd love to approach the school district as well and find out if there's any interest in maybe co-development with them.
Are you thinking of renovating the pool we have?
Either that or creating an actual regulation pool where the high school could have meets and, you know, water polo games and things that,
Right.
area schools do.
We've got quite a bit of money already invested in the city pool now.
Not a black pool though.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I don't know who we could get to help fund that. The county surely, I can't imagine would be interested based on what they just got done spending on.
That's why I think
But I'm
it's-
sure some of that solar system could be used in the new pool. I would think, but that would be a major
Yeah,
expense.
and there has to be, part of it is the feasibility of where it could possibly be located, and that's, that's why I think the school has to, the school is a good potential partner for that. So if there's just interest in them, maybe being a partner and, having a regulation size pool, I mean, I think the community deserves it, I think we could support it. I see folks at the Healdsburg pool from Cloverdale all the time, it's like, the joke is, oh, why didn't we carpool? To do our lap swims. Finley is the same thing. You see run into folks all the time. And yeah, we don't have a regulation pool for the school to use for, swim team or for water polo.
Well, would this go on the school city subcommittee to see if there's any interest on that?
I think I'd like to send it to them to discuss with the school, to just find out if there's interest. in co-development. Because that's, they're the logical partner.
So refer this to the Joint City School.
Yeah, to find out if there's any interest at that level, and, if there isn't. I don't think it needs to go much further, but. Yeah, this is a community need, it doesn't need to be at the same site, and, we certainly. Could have multiple pool locations. I mean, because the pool we have now is wonderful for lessons and for kids starting out and, for free time, but it's just not usable for sports.
Well, and of course, we all know that the reason the county got involved with that was because it's on county land.
Yeah.
If we don't do it there.
It's their
the
building.
county's out.
Yeah, it's their building, but yeah, we'd have to figure out something else for a larger.
And just for clarification, I know there's kind of, there's reference to the 25-yard pool versus 50 meters. Were you thinking 50 meters?
I was thinking 50 meters.
Some of the size.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, with the, if we do pursue, an outdoor Cloverdale identity, a ridge to river, the potential for us for also attracting triathlons is enormous, but we don't have a pool. We do have Lake Sonoma, which is great, but there have actually been events there that were canceled due to fog in like June and July. The open swim portion, but if we actually had a pool, we would be, we would be eligible to attract, some of those kinds of higher echelon, regional and national events. So I think it's just something that we need to put on our radar planning purposes, but I don't think the city can do that alone.
Yeah.
It's too big a lift for us by ourselves.
Okay, so just look at the short course, which is 25 yards. It does qualify for USA Swimming High School and Collegiate, but then obviously the 50 meters.
Yeah, it's 50 meters for international.
Olympic.
Yeah, for international standards, and so, we have kids in the city who are, competitive swimmers who go down to Neptune's and, go on to the Santa Rosa Junior College, and they don't have a community pool to get started with, so everybody has to try it. And swimming as a sport is, and water polo as a sport, they're not going anywhere. So, I just think we've got to put this on our radar and hopefully, partner with our folks at the school, if maybe there's some like-minded folks there who want to do the same thing, so let's find out. That's all I got on. Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment? No, okay, well, as soon as you go back to her spreadsheet. And hopefully want to downtown Wi-Fi.
Madam Chair, this was, I think, Jindai, at your request, this was I think background, there was indication that each of the supervisors, the county board allocated funding to each of the supervisorial districts for broadband extension, which is somewhat different than necessarily Wi-Fi. I know the focus from our conversations with staff's conversations with the county has been part of the additional funding that's been provided through the state because of the concerns around lack of internet access for a portion of our population. It's been about first addressing the issue of just trying to address that immediate gap. Kind of stage two is then once broadband has been extended or expanded to include areas that aren't served, how do you elevate service in areas that may be underserved or the cost of internet service is cost prohibitive because of disadvantaged community status or for other reasons. And so this kind of fits into that concept. And it certainly ties into economic development goals, but I'll defer to you, Madam Chair.
Well, certainly, I just sent the information that I had received. I know that Supervisor Hopkins had come up with was planning on using some of her money for downtown or down village, Gurnville, it's not incorporated, but it's, let's face it, it's a town. And I was wondering if there was an opportunity for us to appeal to the supervisor's office for us to receive a piece of that broadband funding. And that was the nature of it.
Well, I can't see why not, especially if he's gonna split it up. I
He's
mean,
gonna, yeah.
I think Gurnville would be the one that might need it ahead of us, but what's Gurnville?
But she get their district gets their pot and Gore gets.
No,
I
I'm trying to think where Gore would actually put his.
think we made perfect sense.
Well, I do too. Gurnville probably thinks they do, but I mean,
But you have not because you asked not, so.
well.
Or how about for our Geiserville residents that you could certainly, in your spare time.
I did not mean Gurnville.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, sorry.
But no, but here in Cloverdale, it would, it would serve more people,
Yeah.
needless to say.
Yeah.
Than in, Geyser.
Yeah, I don't think that Gore has there isn't an urgent spot in Santa Rosa in his district.
Well, it's,
Windsor, I think is in pretty good shape, so that's why I just thought, if there's money to be, it might be gone by now. By the time we have this conversation, but if there's support, I'd like to do an inquire with, the supervisor's staff to find out if there is still some money available. And while I think that downtown Wi-Fi is a great idea, there may be more urgent needs that staff is aware of that are, on our capital improvement plan of gaps that kind of money could better apply to. So I don't want to, usurp an existing plan, but I also know that, gosh darn it, like it's just crappy reception downtown.
Fortunately,
And I think it affects, it affects our, Tuesday night market, it affects our events that we can attract downtown, it affects the businesses downtown. And so, from an economic development perspective, I think that it's something that we can justify, but if there is a better use for those funds that we've already given if there's a better use for those funds, I'd say go ahead and go for it.
yeah, and I think that's kind of a council conversation. I would suggest just reviewing some potential alternatives with downtown Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, as stepping back, we haven't heard from Supervisor Board, been beneficial if, there was funding extended to the city.
Yeah.
We certainly could have identified some projects. Things that come to mind, I could see that there, in the past, there was a discussion at the Joint City School Subcommittee about expanding public Wi-Fi, and we were exploring opportunities to do that, particularly for kind of a plaza, maybe through the chamber.
Yeah.
During COVID, it was really about making sure that there is publicly accessible internet services for members of our community that may not have access in an area that's safe. And so the thought was kind of maybe the plaza with the police department, the chamber, because
Library.
the library have eyes on.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interest in that. The other kind of alternative is you look at just building the basic broadband fiber through the downtown corridor, maybe Citrus Fair Drive to 3rd Street, or maybe just to the library or to the school.
Right.
So that the basic network is there to enable businesses, residents to be able to connect.
Right.
Because
Just
they-
improved fiber networking.
Right,
downtown
right.
and,
To
yeah,
basically-
so it's critical services.
Right,
yeah.
coordinate the extension of that broadband network, so that it's a readily available service, because it comes with other things that we're gonna get. And then third, one of the projects that staff have identified is this extension of broadband services to critical and essential public facilities with the focus of getting our courtyard and our water treatment plant connected.
Right.
I think from a public funding perspective, the last alternative makes a lot of sense. It's just because of public emergency response, supporting
Versus SCADA.
our services, and service delivery to the community. But again, those are all kind of good projects, and that's why I say it's really kind of a council perspective on which one.
Well, when I sent the information, I was saying, I think I included the state funding that, that he has access to.
Right.
And I know that I know that this is what Supervisor Hopkins is using it for in Burnville. I don't know how what eligibility that the money could possibly be used for. I know we have a list. So it was in that spirit that I was like, let's ask, since we're not being given information, let's ask and find out if it's still available.
Okay.
Yeah, and I should say reaching out to, I don't see,
No.
can you look, yeah, I don't think so. Reach out to the supervisor's office and see if some of that money is still available, because we have pretty good candidate projects. We have multiple candidate projects that it might fall under, so.
And it looks like the effort is being coordinated through both the county administrator's office and in conjunction with the Sonoma County Economic Development Board.
Right.
Because it's ties to the just county economic development goals. And the county has been awarded some grant funds to help with this effort, and we can certainly see where there's opportunities for the city.
Well, that's helpful with their
align.
problem. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I think you have pretty good direction, and we could move on to item 7. Discussion of SB 852, climate resilient communities.
Yeah, I was able to find this one pager on this. This is a new recently adopted legislation that allows cities, counties, and special districts to establish climate resilient districts. Districts could be able to raise revenue through tax increment funding, voter approved supplemental property taxes, or property benefit assessments or fees. So you can define an area like the city limits and start to raise money to work on climate initiatives. I wasn't, and resiliency. I wasn't able to find any cities that have done it yet, but it seems
That's
like this
because
is
there
from
aren't.
February 1st. It looks like this was.
Yeah, this is because there aren't any cities, it's brand new, but the RCPA is grandfathered into this. So countywide, I mean, there are kind of 2 reasons to have a discussion about this. Countywide, RCPA is, they're going out to, they're gonna run a survey and find out if it's feasible for them to put a sales tax on. But the second piece of it is that, as you said, you could, just because we're a member of our CPA, doesn't mean we couldn't pass our own.
One of those.
One of those, yeah, as a city, we could certainly, and we're in a unique position and compared to the rest of the cities in that we actually have some headroom on our. Our sales tax, at least for now. Until, you know, some of there were. Well, when David and I were at the mayors and council members dinner, how many? Sales tax initiatives we did two, there were two, and they were not small. So I think.
Going next year.
Yeah, they're going, yeah,
Yeah,
and so,
November.
yeah, and so I think that it's time to have this conversation, is like, do we have projects that we're interested, or do we have current projects that we're interested in getting funded, where we might want to consider this, this funding mechanism?
Yeah. Give me an example, Kevin, of what type of project,
Yeah.
we would use that for.
That's what I was just.
When I
thinking.
try to think of,
Right?
when I try and think of geographical locations within the city. You know, and I would assume it would have to be citywide. I mean, it couldn't be county facilities.
Yeah, it doesn't give examples, but I mean, I can do more research.
So fall in, so if you think of it as our CPA kind of already being this is the mechanism that enables would enable our CPA to go out and collect funds to do projects. So if the city, and we can have overlap, we could still be in our CPA, and we could look at this as a funding mechanism. It would apply to, you know, city facilities and everything within city limits.
It says tax increment, it says
Yeah, you could do-
or fees.
Yeah, you can do
So I mean,
fee,
there could be a fee on building
Yeah.
permits or.
yeah,
Yeah.
there are a couple of different ways that, well,
To fund,
Resiliency.
yeah.
so three, am I hearing you right? Three ways, so tax increment, sales tax, or fees.
Yeah.
Those
Now,
are
would we be able to give those,
property tax.
those monies collected to some of our heavier industry around Cloverdale that might be producing?
No, I would suspect we need to have some kind of plan that we're funding. We'd have to, or use the CIP. We would have to say, you know, what we're gonna use the money for, and it'd be city initiatives.
I think that this, I mean, maybe I'm really naive, but just for an example, Gus, I think having the CIP and saying we're going to have a 1/4% sales tax that applies to the city limits of Cloverdale, and we're gonna apply all that money to the projects that we put on the CIP. That, I think you can do that.
Well, I mean, there's a contact person here.
Like, yeah,
So, I mean, if the direction is, I mean, I can look into this, maybe we can have this person participate, or I can get more information.
I mean, they just passed the law, they don't tell you how to implement it.
Well, this is very new.
Yeah,
Very-
oh no, this is fresh off the,
Yeah.
And
This is fresh off the
maybe some other city can get one going.
it's in the spirit of, you know, I just wanted to have the discussion in the spirit of, you know, we've had a lot of talk about how are we going to implement, you know, the projects that we want to do. Because they can't, it's not, you know, the rates are, and the enterprise funds aren't going to necessarily cover them. We've got to find the money someplace else. And this is just a mechanism to go after it. And we're in very early stages. Yeah,
Could be easier, it's just.
yeah.
A fee driven as opposed to, yeah, is there any grant money with that, or was it just all what we have to do?
It doesn't.
Oh, no, there's no grant.
No grant money, okay.
Yeah, but
It's a way to make-
you know what, though, it's a way to get grant money.
Yeah.
Because it's the local, it's the source for the local match, and that was the whole idea behind, you know, RCPA being formed in the first place. Is, well, we'll form this body, and then of course it was ruled that they couldn't, you know, they couldn't tax, and so that's what this legislation does, is that it actually makes it legal for you to, or makes it able to create the body and then also collect money. And in a manner of your choice.
Are we limited on the amount of fee that we could charge on that? Because the fee would be the easy way to go.
Yeah, the fee's the easy way, you're right.
It just, they'd be able to raise revenue through tax increment, property tax, property assessments, or fees.
Yeah, to be interesting.
That sounds one of, that sounds like some.
Yeah.
Sales tax has to be
Voter approved.
voter approved, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just an introduction, guesses to, that instead of having to pass a bond, for example,
Yep.
this would be another way to do it.
Right.
Anything else, David?
Well, I was seeing by the legislation that it did deem RTPA
Yeah.
a district.
Yeah.
So there, we might see some.
We will
some
see.
Local interests, projects come out of there.
And that's, and that's what we don't know. I mean, so just like we submit things to SCTA for, different kinds of federal and state money. I'm assuming it's kind of the same organization, is that we'll submit our projects to our CPA, and we might very well.
Already have something.
We might very well already have something, but, and no, there's no but, and this is, if we were to establish our own, this is a way to collect and, it's alternative to, passing a bond.
Yeah.
So it's just good for thought.
Yeah, and it seems like it's modeled after the enhanced infrastructure financing district model, which
Yeah,
is it's a new takeoff on former redevelopment. Where the increase, you use the tax increment that's generated by increases in assessed valuation to help fund the project. And in that way, the residents don't necessarily see an increase in their taxes. If it's a portion of the growth of their taxes is being allocated to fund
right.
improvements.
I wonder how you establish an increment district.
Yeah,
Like the old
then
redevelopment.
there's that whole, then
right.
there's-
Is that a ballot or is that?
And and
I
that's
think
what,
it is.
what may happen is that we may say, as cities do this, that we may say, oh, that process is onerous, that's not something we want to do. We're gonna continue to take our chances to compete at our CPA for it. But it's just another way to finance things that we need to be aware of that is available to us.
Right,
I mean, I kind of crazy, but another thought is that we, if we're concerned about our water infrastructure, you could actually create a district that includes Cloverdale and possibly unincorporated county, or maybe some of our neighbors. That's a possibility under this, at least right until someone, challenges it in court. But it's just, you could raise money to address water infrastructure issues.
Right,
And resiliency issues.
well, that might come in handy when we start talking about South Cloverdale Water District. To see if we can maybe do something with that group of folks.
Mhm. That's another example, yeah. If that, like, let's say that they weren't annexed and they weren't actually part of the city, you could possibly form a district that includes them. I'm not sure if that's totally legal or not. There's
I'm trying to figure out what projects are eligible.
Yeah, I think that, maybe just some examples, just so we can understand it. And then, once we have a better understanding, maybe it's something that we take to council as, this is just another funding mechanism. We may want to think just some limits and capital improvement projects. I think that's a no-brainer, but there may be some more.
I like the idea though.
Let Kevin be creative.
Yeah, it does require, I think the
EITC.
EIFD,
Oh, yeah.
enhanced infrastructure, you require voter approval
Yeah.
to establish the district.
Right,
But if it's not something where they're being asked to support a tax, at least initially, there might be greater support for it if it's going to a purpose that.
It would be hard to explain to people
Yeah.
what that is.
Yeah.
We have our base,
But it-
everything above the base, we keep.
right.
County promulgates
But it
it.
has to be very, it has to have a very clear purpose, but I think that we have some items on the CIP that have very clear purpose,
Yeah.
like, do you like water and sewers?
Well, I'll do a little. There's a contact person.
But, it could also be, there may be room for public buildings and resiliency in that, and so, when I look at the infrastructure challenges that we have, it's that we have to stack benefits, it's like it's what these guys spend their days doing, is stacking benefits, and it's just like, if you get part of a civic center paid for, that's also houses your, police department, then the police department is paid for with completely separate funds, then you just can get more bang for your buck. And there just may be things that your brains can come up with that might work. So, and sorry, is there any other comments for the public, Cindy? Let's go ahead and check for public comment. So do you have some clear direction, David, or?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention it, why don't we move this as a standing item,
Okay,
and as we get more information. we can report back, and then when we've got a more comprehensive view. How you, in your direction on how we want to package this up for council.
It'd be
Council
a
consideration.
great item for Cal Cities to take up for a workshop, or even just to do a roundtable, or it's just like, okay, this is definitely a need. Because so many cities are suffering from, lagging tax bases in order to maintain their infrastructure. It would be great if we asked them to put together a roundtable on this and then hear back from. That's what they get, that's what they get paid to do.
Pretty cool.
That's our, I'll put a plug for it at our next, sign up meeting.
But there's a lot of projects, I mean,
See what we can do with that money.
vegetation management.
Yeah.
We council received a presentation on the need for drainage improvements for flooding that are quite expensive. I mean, there's a lot of projects.
Supporting parks and hillsides, I mean, right there, you just named the biggies, and I think that that's something that if you put that before the voters, fire safety. And then also, atmospheric river and flooding preparation, and that hillside management, because that's part of our general plan.
Right.
To actually kind of, have better safety and better control over those hillsides that, we love looking at, are really nice to look at, but sometimes they're kind of scary. So that, I mean, that in and of itself would be a pretty appealing, message.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else on that? I mean, your neighborhood, you had your mudslides just a couple of years ago, and that's that western hillside is not having good erosion control for those properties that are in the county where they were cutting into the hillsides and, bisecting streams and stuff. So, that directly affects that, your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just downstream, so, I'm interested in seeing benefits too. So, okay, anything else on item 7? Any questions, Susie? No, okay, well, we'll move on to new business. No, we did this, we got this, sorry, standing items.
Okay, so next thing item is the Eureka Art Program. Is there any?
There's a,
Numbers have to come out a little before 3.
Oh, okay, well, let's get with them.
okay, so I,
It's 3:25, yes.
Yeah,
So, sorry.
I'm going into quarter hour.
Oh, till quarter to 4.
Quarter to 4.
Okay.
She has a 4:15 better.
Well, that's, what, that's,
Yeah.
that's all very important.
I think on this item, we were hoping to have representatives here to speak about the Eureka Art Program, and they were at a conference about art and more about it. So-
Okay.
they're super helpful, very friendly,
Yeah.
and they really want to do it. They just couldn't do it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Swan Aubrey and Sarah West, and I spoke to Sarah today, so we got some background, but I mean, maybe. Might be a good idea.
Just, my input on that was just having gone through that 190 pages again and kind of getting up to date. First of all, it's like they kind of buried the lead there, like all of the justification and all the how they did it, and what it was all the end. So they kind of, which I guess you're going to start with the end and, begin with the end in mind, but all of the kind of pertinent how you do this is kind of at the end of the packet. But the 3 things that I think came up for me that we talked about was, first of all, they have and I don't want to do cafeteria plan. I like the idea of having a strategic arts plan, and if it's feasible for us to have, work with the Sonoma County Economic Development Board and their, if we could find some funding for it through them.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. In lieu of that, the 3 items that were in their packet that came up were a mural strategic plan, an art in the park, and art crosswalks. And those are like page 50, 52, and 58. So those are just 3 subjects that have, come up in recent meetings that they kind of have a model to use. So it's like, why would, why reinvent it? Yeah.
We did add to the packet today a kind of just a more generic.
Outline of steps.
Outline of steps
Yeah.
for establishing, an arts program or a citywide arts program. And it seems to be consistent with the process that Eureka followed. The first step is the needs assessment and, identify what's the purpose and the goals, and then kind of looking at what are the current programs, and begin that engagement process. And so really.
And I think we're actually a little farther along than maybe they were in 2016. We already have a great relationship with Friday Night Live. We already have a great, we already have, they kind of like, they really took it on from an academic point of view. And I'm sure that there are programs that were not maybe plugged in well with, but I think that for the most part, we were already plugged in with the great four, like, and Alexander Valley Film Festival, all those folks.
Yeah. Well, I could see, hopefully the Arts Alliance get behind this and maybe us funding it and them spearheading it for us, like we did with Friday Night Live.
Well, yeah, it's a
When we
community,
seeded it with some money in the very beginning and they got.
and then
it
they
going.
ran with it, because then it became self-sustaining, for them, but, we might have to, and actually, that's what's mentioned in the Eureka plan, is that there are gonna be certain things that the city has to take leadership with on, like initially, it's like the mural projects, because they're just, higher cost, higher risk.
Yeah.
We might need to step in and do the first one or two murals until property owners might see that, oh wait, that's a cool thing to do, I want to support that as well. So, and we might want to pick and choose amongst the things that we're able to do, and maybe not do things we don't do well, that Arts Alliance or Alexander Valley Film Festival already do well. So, we want to just wait until and bring it back when they're available.
I think so. I mean, they're pretty eager to share it. They just really couldn't do it today, so.
That's fine. Yeah, let's just do it another day, but a
Oh, the
strategic,
next one.
strategic art program, it doesn't have to, maybe we do a little bit of work up front, like we did with Friday Night Live, and then, it becomes more of a community.
I mean, that was one of the comments she made, is when they first did it, the city took on too much. And now they're rewriting the plan to really push it out, so we can.
It's gotta be community driven.
Yeah.
They have to get behind it.
But it also changes over time as just, as different opportunities and different folks come along. So, okay, well, let's just hear more later. Any comments or questions from the public? No, okay. Great, we'll look forward to hearing more later. I don't really have an update on the Great River Trail. We did have our meeting in Ukiah last week. We just basically updated the previous fiscal year, approved the new budget. We got a report out from the acting executive director, and there is an active outreach for a full-time executive director. So if you know anybody who would be interested in a really great job with a really great board, and we're also looking for another planner. The woman who was working with Louisa moved to Switzerland. That's it, who was absolutely led. She kind of handled more Humboldt, and then Louisa, of course, is based, down here. So we're looking for a planner to work with Louisa, and hopefully a future new executive director. So those jobs are out there if people know, and if they're on the website, greatrivertrail.org. So if you know good candidates, please help spread the word. That's all I've got on. Yeah, any comments from the public, Susie? No, okay, then we'll move on to item 3, community development planning log.
I got,
Some of it, right?
well, I have just a couple of quick updates. The Alexander Valley Medical Center is planning to submit for the building permit in late July. They're working on the plans, working with Coastland already, so they hope to get those plans in. And then I did get a quick update from 101 North, which is the old gas station. They are still proceeding. They just got the roof fixed. They're waiting for the contractor they selected to finish another job, so it is moving forward, although slow.
Okay.
David asked me to put the sign up, which I thought was a good idea.
Thank you for putting the sign up, David.
Oh, I didn't put it up.
Are they going
Thanks for
to,
being on the person who put the sign up.
are they gonna clean their paint off the sidewalk that they spilled?
Yeah, I never know.
It's my first street.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't give them.
Well,
a sign. Close down.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, why they haven't, it seems like just kind of power wash it.
It seems like it's going pretty slow, but she did send an email back pretty quick. No, we're doing it.
Okay, anything else on the planning one?
Yeah, I think those are the two.
Oh, God, now how they doing?
They're proceeding pretty slow. They have sort of a small crew out there, which is kind of odd, but they're doing okay. They periodically ask for a few amendments to the improvement plans that make sense, and we always have Vanessa look at those. So they're proceeding. The by Ducali, we were able to get the Kelly Road deed, quick claim deed recorded finally, so they're chomping at the bit to get some grading work out there, and so a lot of all our big stuff is happening down there, and we have a public works inspector through West Geos. We had Green Valley, I mean, anyway. But that all gets charged to the
Great job.
And this, just for reference, the Cloverdale Connect article for July is a citywide article update, but it will include a brief update on Baumgartner as well as the Fighting Colony project.
Are you guys writing that?
It's
It's
done.
been written and submitted.
Well,
I wrote it, Dave polished it, gave him a lump of coal and made a
use a
diamond.
red pen. Hold on, some red pen.
It was a city staff effort for the pieces.
Good job, team. Very good. Anything else on the planning one?
I think that's it.
Okay, great. So, anything from the public, Susie? Not seeing anything? Okay, item 4, housing element.
Yeah, just in the final throes, we're working through the last comments with the HCD, and we're hoping to get a letter any day. So I mean, I've seen what they've been asking, and it's nothing substantial. So
That's great.
we're really close.
That's great. We're in good shape. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to update on the dog park. You know, we got some correspondence asking about a status report on that.
I've asked Mo to final the plans this week
Okay.
for the trail, and we've had some interest by local contractors. So we'll do an
Okay.
informal bid once we get the plans, which again, hopefully this week.
Mhm.
Hector's been in contact with fence contractor to get in their queue,
Oh, wow. Okay.
so things are
Things are moving along.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's great. Good job. Thank down for that too. Anything else?
Nope.
Yes. All right, any public comment? All right, moving on. Hopefully I was thorough enough. Our correspondent is like, you make sure you ask where that is. And it's like, it's going, it's moving.
it is.
We're
The
looking
plans
at-
took a little longer than I would have liked, but we're turning the screws on mode, so hopefully we'll get that, and it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great. Okay, so but we don't have a timeline yet. If you're not comfortable giving a timeline, just, yeah.
I would think definitely by the end of September.
I don't think there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think it's
It's
just a
just
plan.
lining all the guys up, the contractors, and getting everything.
Yeah.
I think we still have to finalize something. with-
I say that we are getting ready to announce an estimated date. Is that fair?
Right. Well, key milestones is we're gonna get the final plan from Mo Engineering, which we will submit to SMART to facilitate finalizing the license agreement to use the property.
Okay.
We don't think there's any other outstanding issues with the license agreement other than just the exhibits that they wanted to see.
Right.
That would provide us the legal basis to use the property. And then getting once we get formal bids, we'll bring them to council to award. And at that point, it's really the construction schedule as set by the contractors with our input, of course, to try to get it done as quickly as possible.
It's not, the path's the biggest part, and it's not that big of a project.
Okay,
What are we doing for restrooms at that facility? Do we ever decide,
We
porta
don't,
potties?
well, we hadn't decided, but we could, I mean, it would have to be porta potties, I think, in the short run.
Yeah, until somebody gets in that building.
and I'm pushing for that. So I'm pushing for access. I don't know, I chair the meeting tomorrow because the Mormon supervisors are in their budget process, so
So,
we'll see how much, if I don't blow it, maybe if I still have any I'll try to do my best. But I'd love to see somebody in that building and then have access to public access with those restaurants. That would be great. I'm sure the Park and Ride folks would really like that too. But it's
Oh,
just-
definitely.
and it's just a matter of being able to, have staff have somebody at the building. So there we go. I wanted to make sure you were here for dog park. I still got a couple minutes to spare. Any public comments? On the dog park? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, update on 6 acres.
I'll give a quick update, on 6 acres, we're coordinating with the UC Davis, School of Law and our city attorney on finalizing an annexation agreement to bring to council. Not a lot different from what the pre-annexation agreement says, just it's really kind of fine tuning the pre-annexation agreement. And currently the design engineer's PhD is working on the design drawings for the primary public infrastructure needed to serve the existing homes, which is primarily extension of water and wastewater, in no other real public infrastructure at this point. And we're currently looking at the state funding that would help pay for that extension. So that's all in process. We have routine meetings. Our city engineer represents us along with Kevin, our public works director. On the South Cloverdale, they're at the stage of developing the pre-annexation agreement. And again, it's undergoing legal review, and we will very likely be bringing that up through the subcommittee and ultimately to council for review and consideration. So,
And I did attend one, they had a public meeting a couple weeks ago, and
How'd it go?
it was fine. There really wasn't any questions.
Yeah.
I couldn't, I attended on Zoom, so I don't know how many people were there, but there was only a couple questions and it was fine.
And these are the folks that are in that Southwater
Yes.
district.
Mhm.
So I would think they'd be there in mass turnout. I mean, that's
Yeah.
such a benefit for them. Well,
Or they're happy and they didn't come.
yeah.
It's so hard to tell.
Yeah. It was a good meeting.
Oh, good. I think that there's just been such a process behind this and so many other meetings. It's just, so many of the questions have been answered, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Are there any public comments on 6 acres of South Cloverdale? Okay, with that, we'll move on to recreation programming, and I think our rec guy might be not available. Do we want to?
Well, we did the agreement, we did that at the council, the pickleball guy backed out, so we never, yeah, I guess he ultimately decided it.
It's not
Too far to come for Cloverdale.
Okay,
But we have the agreement in place and we're working towards that.
but that's good. Maybe someone will raise their hand. So
Yeah, and the good news is we have it all approved by the council and ready to go. And then the yoga gal, who's, I think, someone you know, we're gonna handle her with the special events permit in the park. So she said she might want to use the facility, the scouts cabin, if it's raining.
we're ready or just smoke. And actually, one of my questions for Michael, is that kind of came out of the, we did a little tour of the scout hut, which is not as bad as everybody. I kept really like Stanley like walking around in there, and it was really not that creepy. But I think it's because Hector and the crew did a lot of work to kind of clean up, but it really wasn't that bad. But I was gonna ask them if we had established if we can actually even have events in there without the exit signs and some of the interior,
Yeah,
safety stuff. Yeah.
we should look at that, because I don't know if it's, I don't know, we need to do some minimal stuff. I don't know if it's the ADA.
There is an ADA door and there is apparently access. I mean, that's what Hector said, is that's what that particular, one of the particular doors was for.
On the side, no?
On this side, yeah, and it has a pathway. We certainly could get a wheelchair through there easily. The bathroom seems to be ADA. We noticed that there were none of those light up exit signs. So just what maybe we could find out what it would take to maybe bring it up to standard so that we could have, maybe we want to have a council meeting there to discuss park, or an open house to discuss parks issues, or, maybe a neighborhood meeting or something like that, that we're, it would be a city presence, and
I'm pretty sure we would want it to meet all of the.
Well, that would be a good meeting spot we start soliciting informational meetings to the residents about the new
Yeah,
open space
that's that,
district.
yeah, so we're ready to announce that, we can
Yeah.
talk about it, so, yeah, might be a nice spot for meetings like that, so. Yeah, so can we, would that, be too difficult to
Well, yeah.
kind of figure out what would it take to make sure that the building is ready for a public meeting, or, public event?
I don't think so.
Okay. Great, any, comments from the public on this item?
We no longer have any virtual attendees.
No more virtual attendees. Let me get you out of here.
Good. That was great.
Standing items, yeah, our future agenda items, do you have anything to add?
No.
I think we've moved so many, we've moved stuff to future, you guys have the notes on that, and so, without further ado, I'll adjourn to our next meeting of Planning and Sustainability Subcommittee scheduled for August 15th. Thank you, everybody, thanks, Scott, thanks Susie for stepping in.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. And you get to make your better try.
343.
Yep, yes, sir.
Just go out and talk to Dennis.
I'll hope. Oh, Dennis. Oh, yeah, I gotta go home and come back. I forgot my